Paper reviewers, Joanna and Janelle. Sorry, I was so eager to get to you. I got ahead of myself in my scripts there. Sorry, guys, but let's just pick up, if we can, on what we heard there from the head of the union there, saying that the Secretary of State, Joanna, may not quite have been telling us exactly the tone of the debate and what was in the debate about having a national contingency plan to try and deal with these strikes.
Yeah, I think she makes a very, very good point, a very important point, and I think there needs to be a much greater degree of openness with the public about what actually will be going on today, and what we should do if we do have an accident or need to call an ambulance, and what is the best course of action for us to take, and what we might expect in those circumstances.
And Janelle, you mentioned it not being a national plan, and I did put to him that local plans have been put in place, and that's what Ms McInerney is saying, that they discussed local plans, and that was accepted by him yesterday.
Yeah, and I think local plans make sense because local NHS knows their services, knows the pattern of usage, knows, kind of what they've got available, rather than a big mass national plan, which might not suit, more urban areas or more rural areas. So I think, they made the right decision. And I think, unfortunately, we've just come not to be able to, it seems like we can't trust this government and what they say, because it seems like they are fighting a little bit of a war that comes a bit like propaganda. If people are saying, this wasn't what we discussed, wasn't what we agreed, and you come on telly, it makes the negotiations seem like they're taking place in more bad faith, and that's not what we need to get this resolved.
No, they need to come together. All right, let's crack on with front pages, and we'll stick with you, Janelle. You've picked out the front page of the Daily Mirror, so a picture there of Michelle Mone, and talk us through this story, if you can, please.
Yeah, so Michelle Mone, Baroness Michelle Mone, she stood aside from the House of Lords whilst the PPE scandal is being discussed. I mean, they're being, I think it's MedPro, PPE are being sued by the government for a breach of contract. She said for a long time she wasn't part of this organisation. It seems that she was. She financially benefited. And I think what the Mirror are calling attention to is just the stark contrast in terms of the extreme wealth that people have got from selling things to the NHS through COVID, things that didn't work, and the nurses and the doctors who stood by us all in COVID, looked after everyone at risk to their own health in some of this dodgy PPE, how they're having to fight tooth and nail for a pay rise. And I think it just shows the contrast of where the rich are getting richer and the rest of us are kind of being left to forage for ourselves and see how we do. And I think it shows a really sharp contrast from this government, right from the top, House of Lords, how their approach is to taxpayers.
Thank you, Janelle. And just to be clear, Baroness Mone has said that she did not financially benefit from that company. Let's move on to the front page of the Telegraph now, if we can, Joanna. And this is a story about fishermen and Brexit. Talk us through this.
Yeah, well, this is a very good news story, particularly for people who live on in coastal communities in Britain, where there's been major cuts to the fishing industry over several decades now. And this is actually showing a real benefit of Brexit. Britain has been able to renegotiate fishing quotas with the EU and gain a far greater share of rights to fish in British waters. And these are substantial increases, 30,000 more tonnes of fish. That's a 27% increase upon previous quotas. And like I said, I think this is a kind of early Christmas present, if you like, for the fishing industry in the UK, and hopefully will secure jobs and increase income for people in those areas.
Thanks for that, Joanna. And Jill, let's go to a story that you've picked out here. This is in the Express, and this is, again, kind of back to the strikes, and this is the impact it's having on the high street as people can't get into town to do their Christmas shopping.
Yeah, they're saying that high streets are losing billions as train strikes hit the hospitality, the West End in London. People aren't being able to go to the theatre, and also they're saying people aren't able to go to football matches. I couldn't go home this weekend because my parents live in a different part of the country and I'm not able to get there on the train. I'm having to delay my trip home for Christmas. Yeah, it's an inconvenience, but it's an inconvenience worth fighting for. And I would also say the high streets have been suffering with online shopping anyway for several years. It's not just down to the train strike. So I think it's a headline that is important because the train strikes are impacting businesses, but I also think it's one that maybe could be spun a different way if we think about the way that online shopping has been a major part of shopping for the past few years. It's not just down to the strikes.
Yeah, and Joanna, let's come on to you here. And this is a story that made me smile when I had a look at it. First of all, we're going to talk about what the reporting says, but also we should clear up exactly who Gen Zs are. Like, what age? You're smiling because you don't know either, do you? What age group is that?
Well, in the article here, it's saying 18 to 34-year-olds, which seems rather a large cohort. I mean, sometimes it's defined far more narrowly. Sometimes it's put it younger than 18, in which case it would hardly be surprising that they're not rushing out and buying alcoholic drinks because they wouldn't actually be able to do so. But for the sake of this article, it's being defined as 18 to 34. Well, it makes me feel old on two accounts. I mean, obviously, I'm very firmly in the Gen X camp of far older, the kind of older generation above the millennials, which come in between Gen X and Gen Z. But also makes me feel old because, yeah, I'm somebody who does like to have a drink, obviously in moderation. But, I think it's fun, it's socialising, and, as long as you're in charge of it and it's not in charge of you, having an alcoholic drink or several at Christmas time is a nice way of kind of just unwinding and having a social experience, just fun, I guess is the one word that I would use, is can just be fun. And I think it's quite interesting that Gen Z are not engaging in drinking to such an extent. I mean, obviously this is not all of them. We've got to be careful not to overstate this, but are showing much more of a passion for no alcohol or low alcohol drinks. And I do wonder, they're perhaps a bit risk averse, this generation. Do they have different ideas of what fun is? Could they do with just lightening up, just having a
quick
bit
thought
more
from you. We've
fun?
only got about 20 seconds left. I mean, did Gen Z need to learn how to have more fun?
I mean, I don't think you need to drink to have fun. I think drinks companies will still make money if they just make drinks sans alcohol, and people will still buy them. I don't think there's an issue, but I think, they've been put off by a lot of people with excess drinking problems, I think, over the years.
Joanna, thanks both guys. Sorry to run out of time. Plenty more to come on Sky News Breakfast.